Well, welcome to Tying Michigan's Best Trout Flies. Today I'm going to tie my own slightly different version of an extremely popular caddis fly. It's called the Elk Hair Caddis, but when I tie it I call it the Deer Hair Caddis because I substitute deer hair for elk, and it makes it a much simpler, quicker version of this fly to tie. So I'm using, for demo purposes, I'm using a 12 hook, so we'll just cover the shank with some thread. And when we get to the bend of the hook, we're going to tie in a grizzly hackle. That's for the rib. And just secure that nicely. A little bit of dubbing. I've got, you can, of course, tie whatever color version of this you want. I've got some olive here I'm using, along with my olive thread. And then we'll dub the body on, and then rivet with that grizzly hackle. Oh. Up to near the front, and then in open spirals you rivet. Some would say palm ring. This isn't a true palm ring. The real palm ring starts from the front and goes to the back. Size 12 hook, 5-6 turns probably, depending on how you like it, and then we'll tie that off. So now here's where it's a little bit different, because I use deer hair here instead of the traditional elk, and I'm using deer hair like this. So when you take a look at this deer hair, it has mostly even tips on it. So when you prepare it, you really don't have to stack it. Maybe we'll just cut that off, maybe just pull a couple of the long ones out. This is one of the things that I like as opposed to the elk. So now we've got some pretty even tips there. And we'll just measure that off and measure it there. We'll trim it right there where we measured it. And that gets tied down with a few wraps until you wrap it snug here until you see the deer hair stops moving. Then just 1 or 2 loose wraps toward the back to keep that wing shape. Come back up, lift up in front here, and we'll whip finish the, I forgot my whip finisher. There's my whip finisher. And we'll whip finish the head here with a few turns, and trim that off. So that finishes your elk hair caddis, and in this case it's a deer hair caddis. And just a couple of points about this fly. One thing, I like the deer hair because it's a whole lot easier to use. The other thing about fishing this fly, I use grizzly hackle all the time, and there's a reason for that. When these flies come to the surface, when they're actually emerging, they'll pop up to the surface, and if you watch closely, you'll see them. They'll wiggle back and forth 3 or 4 times before they pop that shuck and climb out. And I think that grizzly hackle with the barring on it well imitates that the wiggling of that fly before it pops out. This is a really effective fly, especially during heavy hatches. So give this one a try, and try it with deer hair. One other thing about using the fly, I like to trim it in a V underneath so it sits right flush on the water. So tie some of these up. I'm sure you'll have success with it. Thanks for watching.